Hello, and welcome to the third loading screen.
This
This
is our
is
third time.
this is our third loading screen. Oh, hey, no, actually, it's Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 on the Nintendo Switch.
That's seems like a good home for it. How does it play?
It plays well. It plays
What?
like an action RPG. Well, go ahead. What was your question?
No, I'm just like these the from X-Men Legends to Marvel Ultimate Alliance have been some of the best local slash online co-op games, and I'm really glad that it's found a home, especially on Switch, arguably the best co-op platform in terms of like, hey, let's sit like that's what it's advertised as. Let's sit down. You hold this little Joy-Con, I'll hold this Joy-Con. Let's go to work.
Yeah,
The accessibility in terms of playing with another person seems like perfect for this type of game.
definitely. I was really worried going into this. There was some question about whether or not actually it would have like combination co-op, which is combination of online and couch co-op, or combination of local wireless co-op and couch co-op. It has both of those. I'm not going to be able to show those off because I don't have an online person to kind of connect to. I can kind of walk through a little bit of how that all gets set up later on, but it does support all that, which is great. So it has a lot of different options for how you want to play the game. In fact, if I just hit start and go into the menu here, look at that. There's co-op. I can't do
Nice.
online just yet. Like you're kind of gated a little bit to a certain part in the
Right,
story.
right.
But couch co-op, it's drop in, drop out. So I have a second controller here. If I just hold down the L and R buttons, boom, there's a
Boom.
second player who's on my
And
Joy Cons,
you
which
get a big
which
zoom out.
which drifts. I have the drifting Joy Con problem. So Star Lord's
Oh
just
no shit, hey.
yeah. So he's just kind of, I like that though. He's just kind of doing this slow chill walk
It's
over
like
into
I'm
the
I'm
wall.
gonna saunter over this way.
Yeah, just strut my stuff. Um, And while you're doing couch co-op, so as you can see, second player can switch to the other Guardians here. So Groot and Drax, I can switch to whichever then characters that player two isn't selecting. Um, this progress is all tied to how Gamora's gonna go drifting off into. Now she's bolting. This is wow. This is taking a real turn. All right, I'm gonna. I'm
This is
gonna.
called
I'm,
Marvel
I'm,
Ultimate Alliance: The Drift Wars.
The Drift Wars, yeah, I'm going to turn off that controller. All progress, real quick, for Couch Co op is saved to the account of the person accessing the game. So, like whenever you launch a Switch game, it says select the user, right? Who's playing this? Whoever you choose, that's who all the progress is saved to as far as Couch Co op. Online co op, local wireless co op, it's saved to everybody, right? So like if you and I joined up in a game, you bring your characters in with all their progress and everything else, and whatever progress we make, you take back to your game. So again, all the systems for a co-op game they got right. It's all working great as it should. That said, let's just get into a little bit of action before I talk anymore, because there's a lot to talk about with this game. I figured one of the best places to start here. This is just the second story chapter. I'd show off a little bit of a uh,
Guy's ripped.
boss encounter here. Yeah, that's my buddy Dusty.
Look at those muscles.
I get out my shop vac and make quick work of him. Rah!
Now, being a story event, story boss, do you have to have Sandman in this instance? Or sorry, do you have to have Spider-Man in this?
In the story, so Spider-Man is just helping me right now. Like
Is
he's
just
in,
with you?
yeah. So and he's here just to kind of offer some things. So you'll notice that like this guy has a purple bar and a red bar. The red bar
Mm-hmm.
is his health. The purple bar is referred to as the stagger gauge, and against normal enemies, you just kind of attack and do like your light attacks. Oops, get knocked away, and then you have a heavy attack, and that would whittle down that stagger gauge. This is a boss, so there's special boss mechanics, and in this case, we need to use these guns over here and shoot him with what I'm assuming is like ice bullets or something to freeze the sand, yeah, and
Right.
solidify
I
him.
think that's he's solidifying.
Yeah, so he's going to attack, so I'm going to dodge out of the way. keep shooting him, and then his purple bar is down, so he is stunned. So this is our chance to come in here and do a bunch of damage. One of the things you saw me do real quick there is if I hold down the right bumper, or sorry, the right trigger, I get what's known as a synergy attack. So every character has special abilities that they use. Gamora here has like this big sword slam. That uses that blue bar that's underneath, that's on the bottom left here. So that's like your, there's your energy points, that's like your mana, like, you know, that's how you cast your Marvel spells. Yeah. Red bar is health, and the yellow bar, as that's filling up, that's what's known as our extreme gauge. When that gets all the way up, we can do some extreme attacks, which basically just litters the screen with a bunch of nonsense and damage happens. But one of the things I'm doing here is I can use the ability just on its own, so I can just slam my sword and it does that. But one of the bigger mechanics and tricks to this game is actually to use what's called a synergy attack. So that's when you and another character use your abilities at the same time. There was a little bit more to it than that, but like that's the basic gist of it. And when you're playing with computer allies, you can
queue it up.
Yeah, so if I hold down the, actually I'm going to use a special version of it here. So this is, you see I'm finding this bigger enemy here. He also has a red and a purple
bar.
Yeah, he has a swagger bar. So if I delete his swagger bar, he goes into a kind of a stun state. If I miss, but if I hit him with a synergy attack, he then gets stunned the same way like Sandman got stunned, and so then we'd have a chance to do damage against him. And that's like the biggest mechanic to this game is against these tough enemies.
Bars.
Yeah, deplete the purple bar, use a synergy attack to put them in a stun state so that you can deal damage to them, and usually like when they're stunned, you'll deal more damage to them than if they weren't stunned.
Right.
But yeah, so here.
Sorry, you hit him hard on that one. Nice.
Just crazy stuff happening on screen. And we win.
There goes Groot.
And we'll get another
That's
cutscene.
cool. I'm melting. I'm solidifying.
Spider-Man.
Now we have a lovely Sandman statue. Nice, Spider-Man. Good quip.
Pretty sure that's Yuri Lowenthal too, who did the voice of Spider-Man in the the PlayStation 4 Marvel Spider-Man game.
Oh, nice.
Lots of good voices. I'm pretty sure Rocket is Nolan North doing
His best Bradley.
Yeah, doing Bradley Cooper. Here we go.
Some intros.
Yeah. Snicket.
Crystal. Interesting.
Is this some kind of joke? You know, I was just about to ask the same thing about the
Big dog.
laser gun.
Meanwhile, at Andrews.
Yeah, no shit.
So yeah, so lots of pretty good voice acting from everyone. Lots of familiar voices, like from the past Marvel games and stuff like that.
We do it as a team.
I really miss Keith David as Nick Fury. He was the voice of Nick Fury in the Marvel Heroes Omega game. So we're just.
That's right.
Who was it? There was. I want to say. Is it Chi or Chai? I think it's Chi, right? Chi McBride.
Chi McBride.
He was one version of Fury. This one's like trying to channel Samuel Jackson, and it's okay. But so yeah, so we just got a bunch of people and so we go talk to them. Hey, it's Captain Marvel. They all talk and say hi, blah 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 blah. I'm gonna skip past a lot of this dialogue. Yep, they're talking about stuff.
Now, right now, is this a temporary area, or do you have like a home base?
There is no home base. You just go from mission to
Okay,
mission.
mission to mission. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's constantly going. The only kind of stopping points that you have are these shield points. So I'm going to access this real quick to dive into a bunch of systems.
Well, let's talk about the fashion game because that's the most important.
We'll talk about the fashion game definitely. So the last thing I'll say is with those synergy attacks, right? It's a greater, yeah. So those are greater effects. Those are like what you really use in this game to defeat stronger foes and bosses and clear rooms and stuff like that. All right, but what determines those? So let's go into our team real quick. Let's talk about the team stats. So on the right, you have the 6 different stats. By the way, a lot of this is, as you may have guessed, centered around the Infinity Stones. So you have purple for strength, you have red for vitality, orange for mastery, which lines up with purple is the power stone, red is the reality stone, and orange is the mind stone, yellow is the soul, right? So they kind of mapped all the attributes to these different things.
Right. That
which
makes sense.
which will play into kind of plays into things a little bit later when we talk about another system. But so the way the stats work is every hero has different attacks. Like they have their basic attacks, they have their special attacks. Strength determines anything physical, so punching, using guns, or using knives or swords. Vitality is your overall health. Mastery is for anything that is energy based or ethereal, so anything that's not physical. So in this case, like Star Lord there on the left, he has his easy breezy ability, and you see there's like a little 3 oval symbol. That's the energy symbol. So that means that mastery, like the more mastery he has, the more damage that ability would do. There is resilience at the very bottom there. That's determines how much damage you take from energy and ethereal. So the higher your resilience, the less damage you take. Durability, higher your durability, less physical damage you take. And energy then dictates how big your mana bar is.
And the pool is, yeah.
Yeah, so that's all of that. On the left then you see what his hit points are, his energy points, his XP. Everybody gains levels. And then there's hero traits, so he has flight, which means if I back out here real quick and select him, when I jump twice, he can fly around.
Right.
Phew. Alright. Some characters have double jump, some characters like Spider-Man, he has his little web swing and stuff like that. Alright, so that's all the hero info there. The other hero traits, so fire, ice, shock, that means they can have different elements in their attacks. Super strength, they can pick up big stuff and throw it. And then there's also resistances. So there's some characters that are naturally resistant to certain types of elemental damage kind of stuff. From this screen too, leveling up, you can just do it by defeating enemies. There's also these XP cubes that you'll get as you play, and you can use these to help level up characters. This is important because any character that is not in your current party does not get XP. So there is no passive XP gains. All the other characters that I just got, and we'll look at them in a second, will form a team. But like if I leave them out of my party, they will not get any experience until I put them in. And that's a huge bummer, because if I want to change my team up, it means I have to grind levels or experience cubes. And experience cubes, you will get some as you play, but the only other way to get experience cubes is by doing what are called infinity trials. I'll show those off as well. But you're basically grinding for experience one way or another, right? And it's just a long, tiresome process to do. There really should be passive experience gains. That's like one of my biggest gripes with this, is that I can't just switch back and forth between the characters I want and have them be at some comparable level. It is a grind. So that's everything here. I can bring up the hero traits. That kind of gives me a little bit more information about what bonuses and other stuff he's got going on. This is then my ability lookout. So every character is going to get a total of 4 abilities. The next one I will get at level 10, and then level 15 and level 20. I earn ability, and you'll also find these things called ability orbs that you spend to level up these abilities. So each ability can get leveled up to a max of 4, which has different rank up bonuses. So for instance, this ability, if I had all the stuff necessary, it would increase the amount of damage it does, and it also then increases the area of effect. If I switch over real quick to Gamora, her Death from Above ability would increase the attack damage and would increase the damage it does to an enemy's stagger gauge. So
Sweet.
These are static. Like, I'm never going to be able to get new abilities. I'm never going to be able to switch things in and out. Like, this is it. The 4 that they learn, the most I can do is level them up. And eventually, like, by the time you hit like level 55 or so with a character, you can just have all these abilities maxed out. So that's all that information. If you're still good for a little bit more, we're going to talk about those team bonus that you see on the right of this screen. So strength has a 2%, resilience has an 8%, vitality has a 4%. Those team bonuses are determined by the heroes that I have selected here. So I have Star-Lord, Gamora, and Drax, and there's this little tutorial that says, hey, you can swap them out. So these are all Guardians, but if I want to see specifically what team bonuses I'm getting from each one, I can bring up this, and it shows me, okay, so I get team bonus because they're all Guardians of the Galaxy. There's also Star-Lord is part of Marvel royalty, as is Rocket and Groot. There's an Ultimate Alliance 3 buff there. Drax and Gamora both have Cutting Edge, so that's giving me the boost to strength. And then Rocket and Groot and Star-Lord are Wisecracking Warriors, right? So these bonuses are all that, this combination of stuff is all that's giving me those team bonuses up there. As I swap characters in and out, so if I want to change Gamora and put in Iron Man, all right, so I see I lose some bonuses here because he's not any of these things, and he has no team bonuses with anybody else. If I switch to Thor, well, okay, now I'm going to get another heavy hitter, and he's also part of Marvel royalty. So you can kind of go through and figure out the synergy bonuses that you want. These aren't like there's no perfect team. There's no way there's a little bit of min-maxing you can do here, but really it kind of comes down to what's your team comp. So, I was talking about all those different stats earlier, strength and mastery and resilience and vitality. So if you have a team that uses a lot of physical attacks, you're going to want a lot of strength bonuses. If you have a team that uses a lot of ethereal energy, you're going to want that mastery, so you can up their damage even more. So it's really kind of dependent upon what you want to go for with your team, right? Like, that's the better way to think about it. Right now, I just want to play with a couple of different people to show off how they look. So we'll bring in Thor and Crystal, Captain Marvel. I have Deadpool, but we'll bring in, who should be our fourth?
I don't know, Scarlet Witch. Does she give you any royalty bonus? Spider-Man? No.
But we'll bring in Scarlet
yeah.
Witch.
All
right.
3 bonus, doesn't she?
So I get a lot of energy and some vitality bonus. Again, I could probably, I can go through here and kind of then bounce back and forth between different characters and see, okay, if I swap out Thor for like Gamora, like that would give me a little bit more bonus, or Star-Lord, right? So I can see sort of, hey, there's some ways that maybe I'd get something better, but again, those things don't ultimately matter.
Right.
It's more important just to play with the kind of characters that you want and go from there. All right, so I got our team set up. I'll talk about all that stuff later. Let's keep playing for a little bit because that was a lot of talking and not much doing. So I mentioned earlier, hey, there's these things called Infinity Trials that you can use. So as you play through the story and go through, they're going to be like, hey, what are these little different things? Interact with them. You don't have to do them right now, and I'm going to actually skip doing this. But you interact with it, and it unlocks this trial for you. You get different rewards. There's different conditions for doing it. In this case, I have to go back and fight Nebula again. But the special condition for this is that abilities and synergy attacks deal more damage, and everything else deals reduced damage. So the only way I'm going to win this fight is by doing a bunch of ability stuff. So you can kind of think of these Infinity Trials as little puzzles, right? Obviously, the best way to clear this and get this done quickly and efficiently is to get a team that has a lot of mastery, right? And has a lot of, or I shouldn't say it has a lot of mastery, but has, really good synergies between their different abilities and has a lot of bonuses to whatever type it is, right? So having a team that's like all mastery or a team that's all physical, whatever the case may be, but sort of min-max things for those trials as best you can.
Nice. Now,
And those... Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, do the trials sort of make you better at the game? Are they like advanced tutorials, would you say, or are they more like of a challenge, like you know what you're doing and now you're kind of flexing it?
That's a good question. I would say they're more. They fall more into the challenge. Like there's a couple that you could use as a way to learn systems, but they rely more upon doing something of. They rely more upon knowing these systems, right? Like knowing
Yep,
how all the
sense.
stuff works and being able to use it to your best advantage. So, for instance, that ability trial, right? Like knowing these characters have really good synergies between their different abilities, so I can use this to. Excuse me, sorry. So I can use these characters because I'll get a lot of synergy attacks, and it'll be the best way to clear that particular trial.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, come on, Thor. There we go. Nope. Ow.
Don't get hit.
Lasers. Some of the trials, again, they vary. Some are just like waves, so it's like defeat 200 enemies and not necessarily like a set amount of time, just defeat 200 enemies.
Right.
And that gets tough because the enemies will get tougher kind of as you go, and you're not always going to get a ton of health back.
So for the stagger bars, do you have to do a combo attack?
You don't have to do a combo attack to lower it. Like here, I'm throwing my hammer, which is Thor's heavy attack, and that's lowering the stagger bar. Once he's down, so once it's fully depleted, like that. If I do that, then you see he got stunned, and then it did a ton of damage, right?
Right.
So doing the stun is the best way to clear those enemies out, and this right now is on the friendly difficulty. As you get to higher difficulty level things, which like it starts off that you can do. Just this. It starts off that you can do. What was I gonna say? Friendly or mighty. And the only difference between them is just like how many of these orbs drop. So the blue orbs replenish your energy, the red replenish your health, how much damage the enemies can take, and sort of how much they can do. That's not what I want to do. So, it's you can choose which one you want. I played through it all on mighty at first, and for the most part, it was okay. There was a couple of times where I was like, "This stinks. Like, this is not a."
Yeah.
Particularly for some of the boss fights, the mechanics involved were not great. But
At those higher difficulties.
yeah, But like for the most part, like it's not. It's I don't feel like Mighty is anything too bad. So like if you've played other action RPGs,
Okay.
yeah, you'll be okay. I don't think like it matters though. I think like if you just want to go through unfriendly for your first time through, go for it because once you clear it, it unlocks a new difficulty level. That's where stuff really starts then putting you through the test of do you know how these systems work and are you maximizing kind of everything and doing stuff to the best of your abilities. And then supposedly there's beyond that there's another difficulty level. Which I have not gotten to yet, but the other thing I should mention is those difficulty levels only apply to the story chapters. The Infinity Trials have no difficulty level. They just are whatever
Straight up
they
what they are.
Yeah, which is good because like I don't like the idea of having to not only do this
Deal with
Infinity Trial.
difficulty, yeah.
Yeah. It's just like once it's a known factor because I have to again. In a lot of cases, I'm playing the same one over and over again just for experience. Having it be a known thing is good.
Now, beat 'em ups have a pretty big spectrum when it comes to, I guess, control / how in depth they are. Where does this land? How does the beat 'em up feel? You
So
got a light attack, heavy attack, and then
I got a
also
light
the
attack, heavy attack, and then specials.
specials.
So the two developers on this are Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja, and that's an interesting pairing because like when I think of action games by Koei Tecmo, I think Dynasty Warriors.
Dynasty
and-
Warriors, yeah, lots of
and-
people on screen.
and lots of button mashing, right? Like
Yes.
just let's mash buttons all day. When I think Team Ninja, I think slow-paced action, deliberate parries, stamina gauges, all this kind of stuff, and it feels like a mix of the two, and not always in a good way. So those strong enemies.
Yep.
One of the things is you may notice that occasionally the camera is like it's not showing everything that's on screen, but all enemies are still attacking. So some of those enemies will have attacks that actually take them like all the way across the screen or something, and you don't know that attack is coming. So you may be there in the middle of like wailing on a guy, and then this big enemy comes in and just plows into you, and you just have no way to react to it, nothing to do to counter it. You just take that hit. So it feels like, and as mentioned earlier, some of the boss mechanics and stuff like that can be a bit off. Some of the boss mechanics, but it's a blending of the two in a way that doesn't always feel great, and it's a shame because I think I like what each team is doing. I just think that it's not. They didn't do a great job of mixing them. And I think one of the ways that could have been better is for some of these attacks, like he's charging up there and he's going to do a straightforward shock attack. Do what you see in a lot of these other things and give a meter that fills, like that little bar, that line that comes across the screen so you see it, and when you know where the attack is going, you know how it's going to hit, and when it gets there, it's going to go off. I think that's a great way to indicate all that information, and give players a chance to react. And particularly, like I said, when an enemy is off screen and they're attacking, being able to see that attack coming, like if you suddenly see a bar underneath your feet, you're like, okay, there's something coming in here and I need to dodge and move.
Got to deal with this thing.
Yeah. So, that's something I wish that they did. I think because it is sort of like based off of the previous games, you get really used to this button mashing. In later levels and harder difficulty levels, you cannot just button mash. Like you have to kind of use the idea of like a guard cancel, right? So 1, 2, and then dodge out of the way, or don't finish up your counter and stuff like that.
That makes sense, though. As you get into the harder difficulties, you're gonna have to, be more deliberate with your actions.
Yeah.
Whereas a more casual experience with the friendly mode, you can kind of mash around, shoot the shit with your buddies. And then when it's serious time, it's serious time.
That's right. Alright, so there is them all saying, hey, like, symbiote's still subject to sound waves, so maybe have him zap those little electric things to stun him. Which I did.
Nice. The symbiote.
So we'll finish up with this boss fight, and then I'll hop into my other game where it's further along.
Yeah, I'm feeling the art style. I like it. I like it a lot. The cartoony. Comic
Yeah,
book.
I mean, like,
Okay,
everybody's
let's just
just-
settle down on our spells.
yeah, just stuff happens and we win. Woo! Rawr, I'm gonna skip through this just to get to this next point. Hey, Venom joins the alliance. Rawr.
Nice.
All right. So the last thing I'll talk about before I hop on over to the other thing, actually, the lab here. So
Go in
in
the lab, practice your combos. Is that what this is?
yeah, no. Welcome to my hex grid.
Okay. Final Fantasy X. What are we doing?
All right, but it gets a little bit more than that. So as you level up characters, you're going to earn ability enhancement points, and as you defeat enemies, you'll get credits, and all that you can then go in here and spend it to get buffs. So in this case, I'm increasing strength.
And this is
Hey,
for
by the
everybody?
way, this applies to everybody. Yeah. By the
Yeah,
way,
okay,
this thing
good.
is not done. So
Yo, that's a new hex.
so wait.
That's a new grid.
Yeah, so I don't have enough here, but if I went out this
Right.
way and there, so there's one at each of these
Extends out.
points. Yeah, which again, you're talking about the colors, right? So you have one that is purple, reality gem, or power gem, red, reality gem, orange, mind gem, right? So each one of those corners then extends out to its own hex. It has its own little hex grid. It stops at those 7 grids total, fortunately.
But who is really going down the defense grid? Come on.
I mean, like, so the thing is, if you get all, there are some good benefits, right? Like that defense is good because it'll be things, offense here is increases the damage of piercing attacks. On the defense side, it'll be decrease the damage you take from piercing attacks and stuff like that. So those are really good buffs. And then the center of the grid has some bigger bonus. So in this case, it increases the critical hit chance of basic attacks by 10%. The very middle one, which it doesn't show now, I'll show you on my other game, but it unlocks a new gear slot for you. So,
snap.
there's a ton, the other reason then that you want to level up your characters is not just to be able to use whatever characters you want, but because those, as you level them up, you get more ability enhancement points that you come and you spend here. So, there's reasons to do it, and again, it's just one of those things that maybe because it's tied to this grid that they didn't want to just have it be you get passive experience gains, but I don't know. I think they still could have done it. Anyways,
Yeah.
let's